Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. And I know that you have joined us from the places around the globe. So, hello to everyone. Welcome to our session designed specially for students who have opted for exemptions and they are looking forward to take applied skills exams. So, this session is on mastering ACCA exams, a guide for exempted students. My name is Richa. I work as Education Support Manager at ACCA. So exemptions accelerates your journey to membership, but at times it can be a challenge for many students with exemptions who may not be fully understanding the key differences between their academic studies and ACCA exams. So don't let that hold you back. This spotlight session will guide you through the essential steps for the smooth transition from academic studies to ACCA qualification success. Sonia Weston, Education Partner Support Lead and a FAFNO Dignified Tutor, have joined us today to talk and guide us more on exemptions. So before I hand over to them, I would like to quickly cover few housekeeping items for you. So at the bottom of your screen, there are a number of buttons you can use. There is a help icon, which provides information to help you resolve any technical issues you might experience during the webinar. There are icons for post slides and media player. You will need to see both of these during the webinar, so make sure that you have selected them on your screen. There is an attendee chat function where you can engage with fellow webinar attendees, and that is the icon on the right side. But please be mindful, you should not be sharing too much of your personal details in the chat. There is a resource list icon also. If you click on that, you will be able to access resources relevant to today's webinars. And those resources include very important direct links. You can rearrange your screen to suit you and resize the windows if you need to. And if at any point you are not able to hear us what we are saying, or you cannot see any visuals, please do refresh your browser. So registering for the session means you will be sent an email tomorrow with details of how you can listen to it again. So do not worry if you miss something or you have technical issues, you will be able to access the recording of the session. During the session, if you want to ask ACCA experts a question, then feel free to post them in Q&A section. But please note that we cannot guarantee responding to everyone directly, either verbally or via web chat. But we hope that the questions we share will be helpful to everyone. With this, I am now handing over to Sonia. Over to you, Sonia.
Thanks very much, Richa. And hi, everyone. Welcome. As Richa said, my name is Sonia Weston. I'm the Education Support Lead here at ACCA, where my team and I are dedicated to providing you with guidance and resources in order to help you achieve exam success. Thank you once again for joining us today, and do feel free to drop a message in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from, and I'll do a few shout outs before we get going with the session. So that's where you're joining us from. And I'm pleased to be joined by my co-host, Afaf Noor, an ACCA tutor and an ACCA member. And I'm sure Afaf will introduce herself further in due course. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit more. So before joining ACCA, I spent many years teaching ACCA students, and today both myself and Afaf will be sharing years of valuable insights and advice for those that are entering the ACCA qualification with exemptions. So your exemptions could be from a degree that you've completed, or it could be from another relevant qualification that you already hold. Now, whether you are brand new to ACCA or an existing student, you may have been signed up for a little while and you're still trying to navigate your way around coming in with these exemptions. Hopefully you've chosen your next exam and you've booked your next exam and you are ready to begin with your exam preparation. Now, while degree studies often emphasize theories and concepts, ACCA exams require a more applied approach. And so today, myself and Afaf will be equipping you with the knowledge and strategies that you need to help you succeed on your ACCA journey. I'm just going to quickly go over to the chat. Hopefully somebody's put something in. Right, thanks for the response. We've got Asatu from Norwich, Desmond from Glasgow, Liz from Barbados, welcome. Albin from North Macedonia, Irene from Zambia, Oscar from Malta, Tisa from Wolverhampton, Lillian from Dorset, Geraldine from Ireland, Margaret from Eswatini. We've got Elman from South Africa. We've got people from Malawi, Malaysia, more from South Africa. Great to have you on board. I lived in South Africa for a number of years, so it's always good to see ACCA students joining from there. I do have a vested interest. Prince from Ghana, Esther from Malaysia, Jitendra from London. We've got Hajij from Sierra Leone, welcome. And Sharika from Jamaica. How can I not say that? Because that's my heritage, Jamaica. So welcome from Jamaica there. And we've got people from Norwich, from Greece, from West Midlands, Zava from Jamaica again. It's so great to have so many of you on board and lots more names. I'll try and come back to some of those later on in the session. So do keep popping in the chat where you've joined us from, and I'll try and come back and give a few more shout outs. So let's have a look at what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be covering topics to help you prepare effectively for your first ACCA exam. So we're going to be looking at the difference between degree and ACCA exam, so highlighting the major differences between this academic form of study and ACCA exam, so that you're able to clearly understand the distinctions between the two, because it's crucial for you to understand this so you can adapt your study techniques and your strategies and therefore your approach to ACCA. For those that are getting started with the study, we're going to talk about how best to choose your first ACCA exam. So what do you need to take into consideration? And then, of course, there's the importance of identifying any knowledge gaps, because that is key to effective preparation. So we'll be looking at the tools to help you assess these knowledge gaps, and then we will go on to look at the resources that are available to help you close these knowledge gaps, so you can strengthen your knowledge in those areas and build your confidence. We're also going to look at how to study for ACCA exams, because it does require a very focused, a very strategic approach. So we're going to be sharing proven study tips and best practices that have helped other candidates to succeed, and essential resources to support your transition. And then, of course, we're going to wrap up with a Q&A. We're going to open the floor to your questions. What I would suggest is don't wait until the very end, but as your question comes, drop it in the Q&A box, and we will aim to get to as many of those questions as possible. And remember, this is your opportunity to seek clarification on anything that we've covered in this session, or anything regarding to exemptions. So, you know, I do encourage you to engage and to make most of this interactive session. Now, without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Afaf, who is going to guide you on how ACCA differs from what you've previously studied. So over to you, Afaf.
Thank you, Sonia. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the ACCA qualification and the amazing journey you're going to be at. So the shift to a professional qualification from a university degree or any other degree is definitely exciting, but it is a bit challenging as well. The skills and knowledge that you've gained at university will definitely give you a solid foundation for sure, but the approach, the mindset, and the expectations are quite different. So I would, the aim of this session today is going to be try and summarize all those differences so you can plan your studies quite effectively. Now, in your degree studies, your grading is done on the basis of exams, which are mostly set internally by the university, and your final grade includes results of your coursework as well. In ACCA, on the other hand, the exams are set by a completely independent examining team who are not involved in any aspect of teaching or content development. This basically means each exam is going to be different. Not only will the exam be unseen, your exam techniques in those 3 hours are going to be a very crucial part of passing that exam. So, the word exam technique is something that I'm going to use quite a lot, and we'll talk about what that means as well. In terms of the mode of examination, at university, you may have taken your exams on paper or as a computer based exam. All exams in ACCA, on the other hand, are completely computer based. Now, computer based does not mean it's just multiple choice questions. At applied skills level, which is where you're at right now, this basically means that you're going to have objective test questions as well as long form questions that you're going to be typing up on Word and spreadsheets. This brings us to exam focus. In academic education or at universities, the focus is primarily on knowledge, research, and academic theory, which is, if I'm very honest, an amazing first step to the ACCA exams. However, the ACCA qualification is tailored to develop practical skills. So the exam focus is going to be on real world application, regulations, and compliance that are relevant to accounting practices all over the world. So, yes, you need the knowledge, of course. It's going to be a bit of learning and understanding, but that would just be the first step to your final preparation, really. So, with this in mind, we know there's not a lot of learning involved, it's all application based. We can now sort of understand the study approach, which is going to be critical in ensuring that you have a successful ACCA journey. So, this is how I would put this. When you start preparing for your first exam, it is important that you understand that knowledge is literally just your starting point. It is the application that the examiners are going to be testing. So I'm going to keep repeating this. I know I'm going to end up sounding like a broken record, but simply learning the content in applied skills is not going to help in any of the exams. Plus, another, I think, misconception that some learners might have is it's all about numbers. It really isn't. We cannot rely on numerical ability only, because in all exams across the ACCA qualification, you are expected to show your analytical skills, your evaluation skills, and this basically means that the concepts that you learn will need to be applied to the scenarios given in each exam. And like I said earlier, each scenario is going to be different. So that's where the exam technique is going to come in as well. Another key point to keep in mind is the breadth and depth in each subject. The examiners do not look for how much you've written. Now, in your transition from a university student or someone with an academic background to ACCA, this is an area which you might struggle with at the start. I'm quite often asked how much should one write for a particular topic in a given exam? And to be honest, there's no answer for that. So, because the focus is on applying your knowledge, you could potentially be getting quite a few marks for writing your answer in just a few sentences, or getting most of the marks by showing your workings in numerical topics only. So, think of it like this. Before you take any exam, to be honest, before you actually start your practice sessions as well, you should be able to use the concepts you've learned to analyze unfamiliar situations and solve problems. So when you're doing your examples or practice questions, don't just learn what's given in the scenario, because that is likely to change in each exam. You should also be able to recognize patterns and trends within the information given, because in all papers in ACCA, the expectation is that you pick up those sort of hidden patterns, you interpret them, and then you draw conclusions. So studying for any ACCA exam is never going to be boring. I can guarantee that. Once you've understood a concept, the practice questions will give you the satisfaction of knowing that whatever you had learned, you can now apply to any question that could potentially come up. In terms of the integration of the syllabus areas, many ACCA papers build on each other. So, for example, your knowledge of management accounting is crucial for performance management to ensure that you understand how the sort of concepts have progressed during the papers. So, if you're someone who's really good at management accounting, then yes, you could take up performance management as your first exam. This will also help you prioritize which foundational knowledge needs to be revised before you start planning your exam. If you've already chosen your first exam, which is really good, just make sure that if there's any assumed knowledge within that paper, you've already revised this. And I know Sonia is going to talk about this in a little while as well. But the best part about ACCA Study Hub is you could just actually go back to any paper and revise the knowledge that you need before you start preparing for this one that you've opted for. And finally, in ACCA, you either pass or you fail. There are no classes of degrees, and the passing marks across all papers are 50. So 49 and 50 is like a sort of a gap that you need to bridge through exam techniques and other resources that we are going to talk about quite repeatedly. Now, I would highly recommend that you spend a lot of time in understanding your exemptions and evaluating your strengths. Now, this is what I spoke about earlier as well. Each of you might want to start off with a different exam if you haven't already chosen one. I would recommend that you review the syllabus of the exempted exam. Even if you did really, really good at university, ACCA exams require a completely new mindset as the approach to testing is quite different. So go through the content of the exempted exam on ACCA Study Hub. If you feel confident about the underpinning knowledge of that particular exam, then choose the related paper. So for example, if you're like me, who likes financial accounting more than management accounting, then I would choose financial reporting as my first exam. So I would go to Study Hub, I would revise my initial knowledge if you feel you need it, and then start preparing for financial reporting. If you haven't already made a decision, I genuinely think because like Richa said, I've been teaching for a very long time, and I've had cohorts of students who've just literally come from universities. And I've realized that most of them feel more comfortable with taking up either financial reporting or taxation as a first exam. But like I said, this is something that you're going to be sort of deciding on your own, really. And once you've had your strengths evaluated, you are going to be creating a study plan, which I will talk about in a bit more detail after I come back from handing this over to Sonia.
Great, thanks so much, Hafaf. That's really, really useful. One of the questions that have come in was about the use of bullet points in the exam and whether or not in the ACCA exam, when answering questions, you can use bullet points. What advice would you give students with regards to that?
Okay, so I'm always confused about what they mean by bullet points. So if you when you use the word bullet points, if it's just the stars or the dots or the hearts that you want to make, I would not recommend that at all. But if you're talking about writing your answer in short sentences, which are very concept focused, then absolutely yes. So even in exams which are entirely discursive or mainly discursive, your examiners do encourage writing in short sentences and explaining each point in a new paragraph. So if I take an example of a paper that I teach, which is audit, which is primarily discursive, and I would encourage that you write one procedure, which could potentially just be one line, then space, and then write the second procedure. So at the end of it, if that looks like bullets, no problem. But for applied skills, I don't think there's a problem. I wouldn't really recommend using bulleting too much. So just forget the icons and just type up as each separate sentence, really.
Yeah, thanks, Afaf. I think that's great advice. It's more about ensuring that you make your point very clearly and concisely, and that it's a full sentence, or if you're trying to develop a point, it's a well-developed point rather than just a few words. I think that's what we're trying to avoid with bullet points. It's just a few words, which leaves the marker then having to figure out exactly what you're trying to say. We don't want that. We want to be very clear so that we get those marks that we deserve.
I think
That's
the
really
examiners
great.
keep saying, do not use texting language. You're not texting. This is an exam.
Yes.
So no
And that's an
abbreviations, no
increasing
slang,
problem.
no texting language, just complete simple English sentences, no fancy words either. So
Yeah.
just short sentences, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we had a question come in about work-life balance. And I just want to highlight to that individual the compass planner, which is something we're going to talk about more in a little bit of detail later on, because it's really important that you plan your studies in order to achieve that work-life balance. So we will come back to that. But as promised, I'm going to dive quickly back into the chat for 30 seconds and see who else we've got. We've got Rita from Kosovo, Akine from Uganda, Sibile from Eswatini, Sophie from Henley, Mohammed from Edinburgh, Kanisile, South Africa, Umran from Wales, Sheeta from India, Sakshi from India, sorry if I'm messing up your name, Daniel from Malaysia, Mira from London, so happy to have you here, Fenyo from Manchester, Olabisi from Dubai, Hago from Botswana, Mohammed from, where's Mohammed from? Okay, I think that was just a response. We've got people from India, Bulgaria as well. Nice to have you joining us. Tony from Lebanon. We've got Dilly from Saudi Arabia. It's so nice to have so many of you with us, and it really does give a true representation of the global body that we have here. So welcome one and all. Now, to follow on from what Afaf was saying, you're going to get started. You've decided which exam you're going to take. One of the things you need to do early on is to identify if you have any knowledge gaps, because this is a crucial first step in your ACCA preparation. This is going to allow you to understand where to focus your effort, and it's going to make your study time much more efficient, much more productive. And we have the perfect tool to assist you with this. This is the Get Ready modules, which include self-check quizzes. So on the slide there, you've got details of the Get Ready modules and the self-check quizzes in particular. And I'm just going to talk you through that. Now, the purpose of the quiz is to assess your understanding of key concepts covered in earlier in the ACCA syllabus. So if you're doing financial reporting, FR, for example, it is assumed that you have a solid foundational knowledge of financial accounting. Now, these are going to help you to identify whether you do have as solid a foundation as you believe you do have. And although your degree has covered pretty much the same material, the ACCA exams have a slightly different focus, as Afaf said earlier on. And so they're likely to focus on certain areas more intensely, and therefore you need to ensure that you have a thorough grasp of that prior knowledge. Otherwise, you're going to struggle when you start to build on what turns out to be a rocky foundation. And so you're going to access these quizzes through our Student Virtual Learning Centre. Now, this can be accessed via our website, and it's simply a case of going in to the platform and creating an account. So it's not linked to your My ACCA account. You do have to create an account, and anyone can create an account. Then you're going to go into the Get Ready modules, and you're going to take the quiz. So on the slide there, you've got performance management, and the first set of questions that you're going to look at is about cost accounting, according to what's on the screen. So you're going to start taking the quiz without any preparation. You're going to establish that baseline of your knowledge. How much do you remember from your previous studies, and do you understand it in sufficient depth in order to move on to performance management? Or is there some recap that you need to do? So remember, at the moment, we're saying, right, how do you identify the gap? So take the assessment, review your results. So identify which topics you struggled with, which topics you need to revisit. Then use the results from your quiz to guide your initial study sessions. So focus on the areas where you scored lower, and this will ensure you build a strong understanding before moving forward. Once you've covered that topic, then retake the quizzes. So after studying, retake the quiz and assess your progress. So what you should find is that you've made progress, and you're getting a lot more answers right this time round. So the process will reinforce your learning. It will help you to identify those gaps and, to an extent, close those gaps as well. So coming in with these exemptions, these quizzes are really, really valuable to ensure that your prior learning aligns with ACCA's expectations. Identifying those gaps really early and closing them as soon as possible is going to ensure that you're well prepared for your exams. Now, let's say you've identified a gap and you think, oh, how am I going to study for this? Where am I going to get any resources from? I don't want to go and buy books or anything like that. Well, we have the perfect tools to help you close those knowledge gaps. So now that you've identified your knowledge gaps, you've got the ACCA Study Hub. Now, the ACCA Study Hub is an online platform designed to support your learning. There are interactive materials on the platform. You've got study guides. You've basically got access to a textbook. You've got practice questions, and it will help you to read up on those areas that you've identified as being your weak areas, practice questions in those areas, and in doing so, close any knowledge gaps. So how do you access this? You log into your My ACCA account, and once logged in, you'll find it easy enough to navigate to the Study Hub. So go in the Study Hub, explore the resources. It's all organized by exam paper. So select the papers that correspond to the exemptions you've received. You can access the relevant materials and engage with the lessons and the videos and practice questions. What you'll find in the Study Hub, you'll find if there are any relevant articles. And depending on the subject that you are on, you may find that there are some articles or some videos that will facilitate this. And so really helps you to have that targeted study plan, helps you to really close those knowledge gaps and ensure that you do not miss any critical information from your exempted paper. So it's going to bridge that gap between your prior learning and ACCA requirements to ensure you're well prepared. Now, once these gaps have been identified and closed, Afaf, I'm going to ask you, what tips are we going to give these students who are ready to get stuck in and get started on their first ACCA exam?
Yeah, so I think, and it's the 3rd of October, so I'm sure you've all started planning now. So this is exactly the stage that most of you might be at. I think the fact that you can take your exams at your own pace, choose the one that you want to opt for, is amazing flexibility, particularly for those who have other responsibilities like work or other family commitments as well. But this requires quite a bit of discipline and planning, and that's what I want to talk about now. So if you're not studying with a learning provider, which most of you might not be, which is absolutely fine, you're not going to have a structured approach in your preparation. And there's not going to be any guidance from instructors or lecturers like we had at university. Now, this means you're going to be studying on your own. You're going to need a very strong sense of self-discipline so that you can manage your study timetable, particularly if you plan on working while studying. And I think that's the question that came through earlier as well. So my answer to that is a study plan. So organize a study plan, allocate time for each paper if you're taking more than one. Definitely leave room for revision, practice questions, and of course, any work commitments that you may have. It is very important that you stay consistent because you have to avoid any last minute cramming. ACC exams are quite intensive and you need to be quite well prepared before you actually go into the exam. Now, particularly for those who are working while you're studying, you need to make sure you have the right balance. Professional qualifications, like I said earlier, are quite rigorous, and without proper time management, you might become overwhelmed, and that's quite common. You just have to make sure that you prioritize your tasks and try and stay ahead of your deadlines as much as possible. If you're someone who's used to learning concepts, you're going to need a complete shift of the mindset. Your entire preparation journey should be based on the fact that ACCA exams, like I said earlier, test practical and application skills. So when you're making your study plan, be prepared to learn the concepts in a relatively lesser amount of time and allocate more time to practice, because unlike university studies, we're not going to be writing essays or research papers. Instead, we're going to be solving complex problems and practical problems. And this is where the study resources that Sonia spoke about are going to help immensely. So, when you go through the study hub, you'll see it's basically being structured in a very logical way. It'll start off with giving you an outline of the entire chapter. So you can sort of have a flow in your mind before you start. Then it gives you the concepts. Then it has those flashcards and quizzes, which are going to help your studies and make your life much easier. I know I've said this a number of times, but your preparation has to emphasize on applying the concepts to solve problems rather than simply understand them, because each ACCA paper is designed to test specific skills. Make sure whichever paper that you're opting for or have opted for, you're very familiar with the exam structure. So you need to be comfortable with how marks are awarded. Some exams might emphasize numerical accuracy, while others might sort of prioritize interpretation and strategic thinking. You have to practice using past exam questions under timed conditions. So when we talk about practice in ACCA, it's not that I've read the question, I've read the answer, oh yes, it makes sense to me. We have to make sure that we sort of read the question, attempt it as if I'd be doing it in an exam under time conditions. So allocate time, and you'll understand that as you start preparing for each exam, because many learners struggle in ACCA not because they don't know the material or they don't have the concepts. They struggle because they run out of time or they fail to understand what was being asked in the exam. So learning, step one, of course, but then application, and that too under sort of time managed conditions. That's what you need to keep in mind as you make your study plan. This is what Sonia said earlier as well. The learning is very targeted in ACCA, and you will have to take responsibility for studying specific technical content. So your exam preparation needs to include the content from ACCA Study Hub or any other publisher's material, but then the past exam questions, then the technical articles. The technical articles are written by the exam team. They're very exam focused. So it's an entire flow that needs to be covered before you can say, okay, I'm done with my preparation. So please make sure that you make full use of resources that ACCA has provided, which includes the flashcards and quizzes as well. Your past exams and your mock exam are the two best ways of evaluating your preparation. It'll also get you familiar with the types of questions that could come up. It will help you manage your time constraints and sort of take off the pressure that comes with professional exams. So when we sort of shift from academic studies to ACCA exams, that's the mind shift that needs to be there, and sort of that needs to be incorporated in your study plan. Now, so Sonia and I, we've been talking about having a schedule, having a plan. I'm now going to talk about the flow of your preparation that goes in the plan. So suppose you can't start studying this week, you're going to start maybe the week after next. So divide those times into the following stages that I'm going to talk about, and you'll be able to sort of cover each element clearly. So the information that you see on the slide right now is the one that you need to plan your studies regardless of what exam you're taking. Your first step to preparation is understanding the technical context, the concept, sorry, and the content on the study hub is broken down into easy to understand topics which have a very logical flow to build your knowledge. And like Sonia said, if this relates to any assumed knowledge from your exempted exam, make sure you go back and revise that before you start reading this particular content. And depending on whether you are studying on your own or you're tuition led, you have to make sure that you make use of all the resources that are available. Practice as many pass exam questions as possible. If you don't know this already, or if you haven't used it already, please make sure that you access ACCA's practice platform, because that's where you can get all your practice questions from. You could also be using a publisher's exam kit like, say, Kaplan, but all those questions are also available on ACCA's own practice platform. You have to make sure that once you've attempted a question, you review the standard solution. So you have to review the solution, identify the gaps, and you can sort of pick up where you need more practice. So quite a few of the questions are going to have integrated knowledge. Say I was attempting a question which I thought was exam level. I was able to do half of it. I wasn't comfortable with the other half, so I can go back and revise that particular area. The aim is to understand exam technique and practice time management skills. Now, the word exam technique differs for each exam. Sometimes it's the steps that you have to sort of show, or the working that you have to show to come up with an answer. For discursive papers, it's like, how do you start off with explaining a point before you move on to evaluation? So identify, use words from the scenario, and then evaluate. So each exam has its own technique that you will very clearly understand when you go through the technical articles and the examiner's reports, and also the videos that are there on ACCA's website. So I started off with my learning. I understood the concepts, and then I applied those concepts through practice questions, particularly using the practice platform that ACCA has provided. By the way, the practice platform replicates the real exams as well. So it's the same exam environment with the question on one side and all your word processing area and spreadsheets on the other side. So that will automatically help you in your time management as well. So once you've completed your learning and practice, you're almost there. So you're almost done. You have to pencil in time for your revision in your study calendar or study planner. So you have to make sure that you revise the entire syllabus. Some of you might sort of opt for your favorite topics or the core topics as you might think they are. There is no such thing as core topics in any of the ACCA exams. Anything from the syllabus can come up in any exam attempt. So do not question spot. Now, this is a term that you're going to see quite a lot in the examiner's report. Question spotting basically means thinking, oh, this topic was tested in March, it's not going to be tested in June. Nothing like that happens in ACCA. So anything can come up. So when you're revising, particularly if you finish your preparation quite a bit before your exam, please make sure you revise the entire syllabus properly so that you sort of remember it closer to the exam as well. And then this brings us to the mock exam. And I could go on and on about the importance of a mock exam, or at least one mock exam. But in summary, when you take a mock exam, which is like a 100-mark question within 3 hours, really, you get to practice in an exam environment. You can evaluate your answering techniques that I was talking about, and you can evaluate whether you were able to complete the exam in the allocated time. If you get your mock exam marked, you're going to have detailed feedback, which will help you bridge any last-minute gaps. However, even if you don't, which is quite common, you can review the answers in detail. And ACCA has its own mock exams, and they have these debrief videos, which tell you step by step where the marks are. So you could just review your answer, have the standard solution, watch the debrief videos, and then identify the areas that you might need to sort of go back to now. And finally, you need to understand what your mock results mean. If you're marking it yourself, if you're getting it marked regardless. And this is something that you might need to sort of make a note of for your later next steps as well. Across all papers in ACCA, like I said, the passing mark is 50. If in the mock exam, if you failed between 41 to 49, that means you have the required knowledge. It's just the exam technique and the time management that you need to practice. However, if you scored less than 40 in a mock exam, then that means that there's certain concepts that need to be revised. So normally, if you completed your paper and you scored less than 40 marks, that means there's a particular topic that you need to go back and revise. And this is for me, one of the most crucial parts as well. If you were not able to complete the mock exam, this pretty much means you're not going to be able to complete the final exam as well. So please make sure that you take at least one mock exam about a week before your final exam, if that's how you've penciled in your mock exams within the timetable, so that you can sort of learn from it and go back and do more exams. So ACCA would have published their latest paper. So if you're taking your exam in December, there's going to be a full paper published for the March-June session. You could use that as a mock exam and learn from it, because that's something that your other learners have actually gone through as well. So just to summarize version, prepare the technical knowledge, apply it through your practice questions, preferably on the practice platform, because that's where you can do sort of like live practice using the exam techniques, revise everything that you've done, and then take the mock exam, and then see if you need to take more exams just to make sure you're ready for your final one. And I think that's pretty much it from my end. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks so much, Afaf. That's really useful. I think, the fact that you've emphasized the importance of having a structured approach to your studies. I think this covers a lot of the questions that have come in about, do I have enough time to prepare for exams in December? How do I balance work life? It's all about having that structured study plan. We know as a student, when it comes to studying, we find everything else to occupy our time other than to study. And then when we do sit to study, we start to think, oh, what am I going to study? Or I'm going to do this because I like this. I'm not going to do that because I'm not very good at that. That is not the most effective use of your time. I'm sure many of you can relate to it. I did that as well when I was studying. So having a plan in place is really going to give you structure and make the most of the time that you have available. Now, I'm going to take you through some of the key resources. So after this webinar, these are the things that you need to start engaging with or looking out for. And the first one is the Compass Planner, which we've spoken about. It's going to help you organize your study schedule in a structured way. Now, you can access Compass Planner through your My ACCA account. Start off by setting goals. So identifying what exam you're going to take. Let's say you're taking an exam in December. And we recommend you take 1 or 2 exams. So don't go for 4 exams or something like that. 1 or 2 exams. And that will largely depend also on the time you have available. So if you're studying full time, then you can go for 2 exams. But if you're working and you have other commitments, or you just have other commitments, then I would suggest you go for 1 exam. So set your goal. You're going to take, let's say, FR in December. Create a timeline, break down your study into manageable weekly tasks, and track your progress. If you update your progress on a regular basis, it's going to give you that sense of satisfaction to see that you're actually making progress, and it's going to help you to stay on track. So it's about managing your time efficiently, ensuring you cover all the necessary material. As Afaf said, you can't question spot with ACCA exams. Anything can come up. As long as it's in the syllabus, it can appear in your exam. And last minute cramming is not going to work here. Remember, it's not just about taking in the technical knowledge or the theories, but it's also about being able to apply them in a very practical way. And you only get that if you have the opportunity to digest the material fully. And also, it's going to allow you to have a more balanced routine. So balancing work, balancing study, balancing family, you're all going to put that you're going to put that all into your plan. The next thing then is read the mind of the marker articles. AFAF has emphasized that the way in which ACCA exams are marked is very different to the way in which your academic studies would have been marked. And so what we have here is a series of articles that provides you with insight from the ACCA markers. So it's going to take you through what they expect to see in exam answers. So these Read the Mind of the Marker articles can be found on the ACCA website under the student resources section. So navigate to the particular exam that you're going to take, and then you will find the article there. It's going to help you to understand the marking criteria and pay real close attention to the advice that's given. It's going to advise you on how to structure your answers. It's going to tell you common mistakes to avoid and give you tips to demonstrate your understanding of key concepts so that you get all the marks that you deserve in the exam. So once you've got all these insights, you're going to have to practice applying these insights. And that is something that we're going to come on to in just a second. So remember, these Read the Mind of the Marker articles are really going to help to improve your performance. It's going to help you to think like a marker. And if you're able to think like a marker, you're going to produce clear, concise, and well-structured responses. And of course, another resource that was mentioned that is not on this slide is the examiner's report. Afaf mentioned the importance of the examiner's report. They give detailed feedback on how students performed in the past exams. So again, highlighting common errors, areas where students struggled. And so it's good to download the report, again available on the ACCA website, review the feedback and put into practice the insights you have gained from that. So that's 2 in 1 there. You've got the Read the Mind of the Marker and you've got the examiner's report. I'm again going to emphasize the importance of mock exams, because what we have every exam session, 3 weeks before the exam, we produce a mock exam. Now, the mock exam can be accessed through the ACCA platform. As Afaf said, this simulates the real exam environment. And so I've seen some questions talking about the functionality of the word processor and the spreadsheet component in the exam. It's not going to be the same as what you have in Microsoft or in Google. And so you are strongly advised to go into the ACCA practice platform, have a look at the mock exam, or we've got other resources. We've got specimen exams, we've got practice exams, we've also got past exams, but it will allow you to become familiar with the interface, how you can move things around, how you can resize things, and also to become familiar with the functionality that will be available to you in the exam, in the word processor and the spreadsheet document. Now, the mock exams, how do we use these? What you do not do is do the mock exam a day or 2 before your real exam. That is going to have little to no value. Attempt the mock exam at least a week, preferably 2 to 3 weeks before your exam, under exam conditions. So phone off, no distractions, lock yourself away in a room for 3 hours to mimic that real exam environment. Don't refer to your notes. Take the mock exam, and after you've completed the mock exam, review your answers. There are solutions provided, there's marking guide provided, and a few days after the mock exam is available on the practice platform, you will also have access to debrief videos, and that's what you can see on the slide there. We've got our student YouTube channel, and our expert tutors provide detailed explanations of questions in the mock exam. So you don't have to struggle through and mark by yourself and try and figure out where you went wrong. Watch the debrief videos. It's going to walk you through the questions in the mock, and in doing so, it'll help you to identify any weaknesses and really help you to hone in on areas where you need further practice. So it's going to give you a real taste for the exam. You know, think of it as being your warm-up, your test drive. You wouldn't go for a driving test without having some lessons, without trying it out, getting familiar with the controls of the car. So don't go into your ACCA exam without going to the practice platform and doing a mock exam, so that you can get used to the time pressure, you can get used to navigating the platform. It's a real practical way to not only test your knowledge, but also ensure that you are ready for the actual exam and the environment in which it's going to be found. Now, on the YouTube channel, just a quick mention, you will find playlists for your subject. So FR, performance management, financial management, audit, whatever exam you are taking, you will find videos organized according to playlists. So it's something that you should definitely become familiar with, and refer to it during your studies. So we're going to start looking at some questions. We have addressed a lot of the questions throughout the course of the session, but we're going to dip into the Q&A box. So there's still time to put your questions in, but we've highlighted the key resources that you should be referring to. We've highlighted and provided you with an approach so that you can commence the studies for your ACCA exams with confidence. And a little bit of last inspiration, I think, on the screen there from Satya Nani. A little progress each day adds up to big results. I think the name has just cut off the Y of the day. But it starts today. That's all we're saying. Little by little, you will have those building blocks. And by doing that, you will put yourself in the best position for exam success in December, hopefully. Right, so we're going to be with you for a few minutes. Afaf, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to have a look at the questions that have come in.
I have. I've answered just one or two. I'm just going to pick up a couple while you go through the box as well. So Sakshi said that she's never attempted a CBE exam. What is required to prepare for this type of exam? And in terms of, again, it's when we talk about a CBE exam in ACCA, there are no fancy IT skills that you need. You should be able to, for the word processing area, you should be able to insert tables and type up the answer. For spreadsheets, you just need to be able to put in basic formulas and show your calculations. It's the technique of using the information in the scenario to use the word processing area and the spreadsheet, which is where the practice is needed. So for CBE exams, when we talk about the objective test questions and applied skills, you just click the answer. That's absolutely simple. But it's the section B or C where the long form questions are. So the skills that you need, there are guidelines on ACCA website, but I would say the only skill that you really, that you can actually get is through practice. So use the practice platform. You might struggle in the first one or two questions. By the third one, you'll be completely comfortable with this. So a lot of students who do start at the applied skills level have never used, forget the exam environment, they've never used computers in their life, and they get familiar with it within a couple of days. So the resources are there on ACCA's website, and just practice using the platform and you're good to go. There's nothing, no fancy techniques that are needed for ACCA exams.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Afaf. And what I would always say is that it's an exam that is on computer. Yeah, so the test is not about whether or not you can use the software. It's not complicated. So even if you are not totally familiar with computers, there's nothing to stop you. And that's why we have the practice platform, so that you can become comfortable. You can go in and out and have a look at these exams as many times as you like until your comfort level is reached. But we're not testing your IT skills. It's just an exam that happens to be on computer. You know, there's been a few questions coming in about how much time should I allocate to study, how much time if I'm taking 2 exams, how long does it prepare to prepare for an exam, and you know, should I choose an exam with a higher pass mark? I'm going to group those together. First of all, when selecting your exam, you say, oh, I'm going to choose one with a higher pass mark. That may not be your strength to start off with. Afaf, at the very beginning, you spoke about the importance of really evaluating yourself and where your strengths are and making a decision on that basis. You know, is there anything you want to add to that, just to reinforce the importance of, you know, going with your own strengths?
Yeah, I think before I go on to that, it is just October now. And I've been teaching for almost 20 years now. And I've had lots of groups who've just literally never stepped into a workplace, who've had their exemptions and started ACCA, and they have been able to completely prepare and pass an exam within a month and a half. But this, like I said, and what Sonia said as well, requires a lot of self-discipline and planning. So in terms of how much time do we need? Can I start now and pass an exam? The answer is yes, you definitely can. I can't give you a time allocation within a day because I don't know what your commitments are, but it's not the crazy, oh my God, I'm going to be studying 12 hours a day, right? It's not that rigorous. If you start now, you can easily prepare for at least one exam. And I would not recommend taking more than one exam as your first paper in ACCA. In terms of the pass rates, and this is something that I wouldn't want you to do at all. For example, and this is what I spoke about earlier as well, you might be really, really good at management or cost accounting. So then the pass rate for performance management is lower than the rest of them. And you just not take that exam and thinking, oh, I'll just do FR, financial reporting, because that's a higher pass rate. So don't do that. Choose what you're more comfortable with. I would definitely not recommend taking financial management as the first exam. So do not take FM or audit and assurance as the first exam. Avoid these two, and then just choose based on what you're more comfortable with. If it's financial accounting, then FR. If it's cost of management accounting, then PM, or otherwise just start with taxation, which has no assumed knowledge. So taxation is like completely a blank slate. You can just start off with that and you should be all right for December.
No, that's great. I think that's perfect advice, Afaf. You know, no two situations are the same. And so the amount of time that you have to allocate to your studies each week is going to be different for everyone. I think we've got time for one last question. And there's a question, can we study and pass exams without learning partners? Now, you know, my advice is if you are able to access a learning partner, then do so. Because that is the #1 best way to ensure you are successful, or to put you on that right track, because you're going to have motivation, you're going to have regular touch points with your tutor, you're going to have the ability for that instant question and answer in the classroom. And this could be online or it could be in-person classes. If you are able to go to a learning partner, there are no restrictions, then yes, go to a learning partner. That is going to be your best route. I know that this is not always possible for everyone for a variety of reasons, which I don't need to go into now. But if you cannot go to a learning partner, then make use of the Study Hub resource. It's got the textbook, it's got questions, it's got everything that you need there in order to ensure that you cover all the syllabus area. Make use of the compass planner. So set yourself a timetable. You're going to have to be super disciplined though. And that's the advantage of a learning partner. It gives you that discipline, that focus. But if not, use Compass Planner, use the Study Hub, use the technical articles and topic explainer videos. use the practice platform resources and our student YouTube channel, where you will find debrief videos and other technical content. That's also where you can find our topic explainer videos, which takes you through technical content in each exam. So our expert tutors break it down for you a little bit. So learning partner if you can, then yes. If you can't, then all of the resources that we've shared with you today will put you in the best position. And I think we're about out of time there, Afaf. It's been a really full session. Thanks to all of you online for joining us today. Thanks, Afaf. It's been great doing this session with you. We hope that this webinar has provided you with valuable insights as you embark on your ACCA journey. And remember, preparation and strategies are key to success. But we're here to support you every step of the way. Access the resources that were shared on this webinar. And the most important thing is to get started today.
Yeah.
So with that, I bid you all farewell.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.